Hello friends, I welcome you all to another edition of Daily News Analysis. So in this particular edition, we are going to take a look at very important articles that are part of Hindu as well as Indian Express newspapers. See, we have switched to the prelims mode now. So we are going to discuss some 5 articles that are the most important from the today's newspapers particularly. Going forward, a lot of you may have some of the anxieties for say the prelims, but let me tell you, the biggest enemy when it comes to prelims, particularly the prelims preparation overall, is the overthinking. So always avoid overthinking. Take things as they come, not necessarily, if you say not able to perform uh, at par or not able to perform good in some tests, that should not drag your whole motivation and enthusiasm for the prelims. Okay, just grind on. Particularly the prelims is also about holding your nerves. Okay, and always avoid overthinking, whether you are whether you are preparing for it, preparing through test, or whether in actual prelims itself. Always avoid overthinking is the biggest enemy in prelims. Remember this particular mantra. Okay, so let's start. So we are going to discuss these 5 important articles. The first article that we are going to take a look at is Lok Sabha passing Shanti Bill. Very very interesting name, by the way, Shanti Bill. Shanti essentially nuclear weapons, bringing in Shanti. But it is about nuclear energy and entry of private sector into it, although it doesn't, convey per se the nuclear weapons part. Okay, so leave aside that part. Jokes aside, another important bill that is passed by Rajya Sabha is the 100% FDI in insurance sector bill that was earlier passed also by Lok Sabha. Now it has been passed by Rajya Sabha. We are going to take a look at, some important points on these bills. Although in our earlier DNA episodes also we have covered these issues in detail. Second important article is about how to protect, Aravalli range. So important analysis in the Hindu newspaper, very vital, particularly some in the wake of say recent Supreme Court judgment on the uniform definition of the Aravallis and the forest around Aravallis. This particular issue has arisen. See, means we are all seeing the adverse impacts of say air pollution in Delhi. So from the perspective of say overall environment and the protection from such harmful effects of air pollution, we have these lungs of Delhi, particularly lungs of the northern India, that is Aravallis, and how now the Supreme Court's such uniform definition will impact that. But these lungs, particularly the Aravallis, is very vital and prominent question that is being discussed. And apart from that, our Prime Minister is currently on a visit to Oman. So important point here that we are going to sign FTA, particularly SEPA with Oman as well. So from the perspective of prelims, you must also know India has SEPA like arrangement, like FTA, with how many other countries. Okay, so now we have Oman in the list. Earlier there was UAE. Apart from that, in the comment section, tell me what are some of the other countries that have SEPA FTA arrangements with India. Another important article that we are going to discuss is about possible discovery of dark matter sparking debate and interest. Particularly, very interesting article in the science page of the Hindu, है ना? So the article, recently some scientists have claimed that they have actually found the dark matter. So essentially, this has created a buzz. Although I know that that buzz is going to die, because most of the time, the sensationalism associated with such discoveries is what undoes it. So to certain extent, that's what will happen with this particular discovery as well. We are going to see, but I'm not particularly optimistic about the discovery part here. So essentially, why not? I will tell you in that particular article. Dark matter, dark energy is something very mysterious sort of matter as well as forms of energy in the whole universe. It is said that our universe is composed of whatever we see around the universe. The matter that we see is only around 3 to 4% of the whole universe, the matter of the whole universe. Apart from that, we have almost 28 to 30% of dark matter and almost 65 to 70% of dark energy. These are still percentages which vary. So what the core to understand here is dark matter and dark energy is still to be found actually in the universe. Although their existence is theoretically proven, it can be proven through various models of the universe, but we are yet to observe any conclusive evidence of their existence in the actual universe. So what are the claims currently that are in news about, say, the discovery of such dark matter particles, and what are some concerns associated with this discovery is important article. Another important and vital article from the perspective of science and technology is wirelessly linking 7 trains. China's test run sets a template. So very interesting article. So China, what they have done, what they have achieved is very interesting. They have actually, in particularly when it comes to freight transport, they have wirelessly actually synchronized these 7 trains on the same track. So very interesting and very important because uh, at a time 7 freight trains with such heavy loads on them and synchronized, and that too wirelessly, is something huge feat, and China has achieved it. Okay, so interesting and important. See, from the perspective of science and technology in prelims, UPSC has asked questions like means what are the applications of AI. Okay, at that point of time, maybe the transfer of electricity by AI, wireless transport may not be possible through the AI, but you don't know, we never know essentially what can be the future applications of AI. So to certain extent, this particular news also is in that category, that wirelessly also you can have the trains running on the track through, not through some connecting wires, but wireless communication on just prompts and all those things. You can handle the freight corridors, so that is huge. So to certain extent, it will have the impact on overall logistics sector going forward, if the model, if the overall prototype is successful and other countries also adopt it. So China has done it. Some interesting stuff always done by China particularly. So let's look at the first article that is there, particularly Lok Sabha passing Shanti Bill. So Shanti Bill, which allows the private sector to come up in the India's nuclear energy sector. Particularly, we are going to discuss another important bill here is about 100% FDI in insurance sector. So let's look at first what has happened now. So the Lok Sabha on Wednesday have passed the sustainable harnessing. So what's the full form of Shanti? Shanti का full form क्या है? Sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India. That is Shanti Bill 2025. Despite the several opposition members for referring it to the joint to the parliamentary panel, but that hasn't happened. The Lok Sabha has passed it. Now Rajya Sabha has also passed another important bill, 100% foreign direct investment in the insurance sector. Earlier it used to be 74%, sorry, 74% FDI is allowed with the government approval, but now 100% FDI, we have opened our insurance sector fully to the foreign direct investment. So these are very important sort of developments. So first about Shanti Bill. So what the Shanti Bill has brought in is some of the core changes in India's Civil Nuclear Damages Act of 2010. See, we have the historic civil nuclear deal with US in 2005 particularly. That is the turning point for whole of India's nuclear energy sector, because after this particular deal, India's isolation at the world stage when it comes to nuclear sort of energy, nuclear power sector in particular, was done away with. Despite India not signing NPT on and other other of those treaties like CTBT or Wassenaar Arrangement, Australia, etc. at that point of time, particularly due to the civil nuclear arrangement, India's isolation in nuclear world ended particularly. So that created the avenues for US also to invest in India's nuclear energy sector. Through this particular civil nuclear deal, essentially India allowed the entry of private sector to limited extent in India's nuclear energy sector. But after that, due to Civil Nuclear Damages Act of 2010, many times the suppliers stayed away. Suppliers, or rather companies, the companies which are involved in nuclear energy stayed away because there was clause associated with liability. So that to certain extent government has relaxed that liability clause from Civil Nuclear Damages Act. So what the new Shanti Bill does is repeals existing legislation on nuclear activity and opens up private sector participation in civil nuclear sector. Civil nuclear sector is the word. Remember that. Civil nuclear sector को हमने open कर दिया है. Particularly still, weapons grade and all those things, that hasn't been opened up. The bill enables private companies to run nuclear power plants and bring in foreign investment into the sector. It is huge sort of development. It places the responsibility of managing nuclear plants on the operator of the facility. It limits operator liability to the capacity of the plants only. Earlier, the operator liability was also there. It also extended to supplier side overall, but now it has been liability to the capacity of the plants. So essentially they have reduced the liability. Okay, so to what extent anyone can claim liability from these nuclear companies. Government to stay in control of nuclear waste management. So this is also very interesting and important part here, that government will still look after the nuclear waste management. Nuclear waste is something very harmful, and its management is always very important point of contention. Particularly the opposition is questioning the timing and corporate interest. See, means these are some points that are highlighted by the opposition. No need to go through them particularly, but I have just from the perspective of say better clarity, I have just included them, like the inclusion of some group and their particular interest in it, or particularly there were other members who are saying that this is to mend the relations with US, sort of. Under Trump's pressure, we are actually doing this. So there may be some grain of truth to it, okay? Because despite our own deal with US, the US companies didn't invest or didn't show any interest in running these nuclear power plants in India because of that liability clause. Now, under Trump's pressure and the tariff policy and the 50% tariff that we have on us by the Trump administration, this may be one way to pacify the Trump administration. So there may be some grain of truth to that. So particularly the most key contention here is removal of civil nuclear liability clause. A major point of debate was the removal of provision from the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damages Act 2010 that allowed plant operators to seek recourse from suppliers if faulty equipment is caused and has caused an accident. But what now happened is the government has been accused of hypocrisy, because in 2008 BJP opposed this particular act, had moved a no confidence motion against the Manmohan Singh government party due to the absence of such clause at that point of time in 2008. Now in 2010 they included, and now the government has included the same, has actually means tried to done away with the same clause. So he argued that its presence later deterred foreign companies, and even after the US-India civil nuclear deal and India's waiver from the nuclear suppliers group, NSG group, sanctions, because suppliers face potentially unlimited liability. So there are hypocrisies associated with this particular thing here that has been highlighted in the debates as well. Government's defense changed technology and risk profile. What the government defended their move through is the changed nature of technology. Nowadays had created reservations in collaborators. So essentially it deterred the private investment FDI in the nuclear energy sector. He argued that circumstances had changed since 2010 because India currently has nuclear mission as well, like nuclear, our own national nuclear mission. So in which we are promoting small modular reactors, SMRs. So SMR entry has changed a lot. Particularly SMRs will be a huge boost to our energy, nuclear energy sector, particularly nuclear power production. It particularly, and we have discussed in detail on the SMR and how they works. So these are small reactors with less of, say, waste, nuclear waste problem. So SMRs and its push all over the world. Many private sector companies are involved in SMRs and its and the development associated with that. So essentially now we cannot miss the bus, and that's why India has launched its own national nuclear mission in which we are promoting SMRs. So to certain extent, this particular push will come and private companies, the multinational MNCs will come into this particular sector with their FDI if we actually change the Civil Nuclear Liabilities Damages Act of 2010. Means if that is not changed, it will further deter the multinational companies from coming into this particular sector. So that's the also whole debate surrounding that. So this is something about the basic act. Just go through it. Very important. Right to recourse against suppliers. Then there is nuclear damage claim commission. Time limits for claims is also there. And apart from that, significance and criticism challenges. So not that much important. Particularly 100% FDI in insurance sector. This is also important news. We have already covered in our earlier DNA episodes as well. So particularly what it has allowed now is the bill allows 100% FDI in investment in insurance sector. Mergers and of non-insurance and insurance companies is also allowed. It allows for cap on commission of insurance agents and intermediaries. It mandates data collection compliance with DPDP Act. So to certain extent, this particular point here is very important, that the merging and compliance with DPDP Act is also there, so that the right to privacy is protected. So particularly, what is the full form of the bill? What exactly is the bill that is passed is Sabka Bima Sabki Raksha, amendment of insurance laws bill, a day after its passage in the Lok Sabha. It allows 100% FDI. Upper house also passed the repealing and amending bill. So this is also, like some absolute laws were also done away with apart from this particular insurance related bill. So government's rationale, what is the government's rationale for 100% FDI in insurance sector? Replying in the debate, what the government argued is, bill clearly lays out the regulatory structure for insurance sector. She assured that premiums collected from Indian customers by foreign insurers would remain within India. So this is the point here. This is the main issue. She added that private insurers already participate in union government welfare schemes, and the bill would ensure that foreign insurance companies are also bound to take part in the social sector activities and government schemes with no scope to evade this particular responsibility. So essentially, the accusation surrounding the entry of foreign foreign companies in this particular sector, and they harming India through, say, misuse of data or misuse of say their position in the sector. We can check their participation, and we can have the accountability and transparency mechanism in place, so that they but what the government Union Finance Minister has said is their entry will boost the insurance sector further, because it will bring in investment competition and premium reduction overall. Raising the FDI limit to 100% would attract more FDI, more foreign insurance, especially as many companies had earlier failed to find suitable joint ventures partners. Increased participation would enhance competition. So competition enhancement is the core here. See, means in the Indo crisis, we are saying that duopoly is promoted, now government is promoting competition by allowing FDI. Then also, certain sectors and the opposition is criticizing. So to certain extent, there is no uniformity in the opposition criticism as well. Okay, in some sectors they want competition, but in others they don't want it. So that is sort of hypocrisy here. So to certain extent, the entry of foreign sector will bring in competition as well. Undermining PSUs, this is not that much of an important. Okay, so this is the practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very important and very interesting article, a very interesting practice question. The second important article that we are going to discuss is about how to protect Aravalli range. How is the Aravalli range to be protected in the wake of, say, Supreme Court judgments? How do the Aravalli range, Aravalli hills prevent the desertification of the Indo-Gangetic plain? The importance of the Aravallis. What were its recommendations for the Central Empowered Committee? So that was formed after the Supreme Court's recommendation, that Central Empowered Committee, and on its recommendation itself, the Supreme Court accepted that uniform definition now. And has the Supreme Court completely banned the mining in the ranges? That is not so. Now the mining will again start after the Supreme Court's clarification of the uniform definition. So the Supreme Court in an order last month settled on a uniform definition of the Aravalli Hills. So what can be called Aravalli Hills and ranges, and pause the grant of fresh mining leases inside its areas spanning Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan and Gujarat. Although it paused, it opened up new areas for mining. That is also true. Okay. So to certain extent, it has created a concern in certain sections of society, the environmentalist as well. But before that, what is the importance of Aravallis? How they protect Delhi particularly? This is also very, very interesting, and how they protect overall Indo-Gangetic plain from the threat of desertification. Because see, India's this particular part is essentially a Thar desert. You must already know this, and this this particular whole Aravalli range protects the desertification from spreading. So apart from being nearly 2 billion years old, see, the Aravallis is the oldest fold mountain in India. Remember that. So it is a fold mountain which is almost 2 billion years old, and India's oldest mountain range. They serve as an important ecological barrier to prevent the desertification. That is true. Arrest the eastward spread of the Thar desert. That's what I said. Thar desert and eastward spread. It arrested. Apart from that, it plays an important role in stabilizing climate, supporting biodiversity and recharging groundwater. Recharging groundwater is also very important role played by the Aravalli Hills. Stretching from Delhi to Gujarat across 650 km, the mountains support water recharge systems and are the source of important rivers such as Chambal, Sabarmati, Luni. So this is also very important points. They are the source of important rivers. It is richly endowed with sandstone, limestone, marble, granite, minerals such as lead, zinc and copper, gold and tungsten. While historically mined for these resources, it has the past 4 decades has been excessively quarried for stone and sand as well. So this is also very, very important point. Okay, Supreme Court in its allowing the uniform definition said what it said is, if we totally ban the mining part, it will further actually promote violent mafias, and it will further promote illegal sand mining. So instead, if we regulate it, if we allow the mining with regulations and accountability and transparency mechanism in place, we can control the overall flagrant violation of mining laws in Aravallis. So to certain extent, that's the argument here. So although it historically also this particular region is mined indiscriminately, this has contributed to deteriorating air quality as well as plummeting groundwater recharges. So that's where there are concerns as well. The air quality in Delhi may further plummet if we if the Aravalli hills are gone permanently. A proportion of the mining has also been illegal. The court noted that India is bound by international commitments under the UN Convention to combat desertification to protect vulnerable ecosystems such as Aravalli range. So UNCCD also, India is a signatory and it is bound by that. That's why we need to promote Aravalli range itself. Okay, and to certain extent, also highlighted in the article is mining threat and action. What sort of mining threat is posed to the Aravalli hills and what sort of action we have taken over the period of time. So you can clearly see some of the points that are highlighted here. Since early 1990s, the Environment Ministry has framed rules allowing mining only in sanctioned projects. Okay, this is interesting. but these norms have been repeatedly violated, especially in the ecologically fragile Aravalli range. So there are many times, sand mafias, quarrying mafias, means, particularly stone quarrying mafias in the regions around Haryana and say Rajasthan, which, the action on them has turned violent, like particularly they have resorted to violence against the lawful officials. In response to the large-scale environmental damage, the Supreme Court of India intervened in 2009 and imposed a blanket ban on mining in the Faridabad, Gurugram and Mewat districts. The code further tightened restrictions in May 2024 by prohibiting the grant of fresh mining, lease and renewals across the Aravalli range. Its court tasked its centrally empowered committee with a detailed examination of the issue. In March 24, this particular committee actually submitted its recommendation after calling for scientific mapping of the Aravalli range across states and macro level environmental impact assessment of mining activities. It also recommended a strict ban on mining in ecologically sensitive areas, including protected habitats, water bodies, tiger corridors, key aquifer recharge zones, and areas within the national capital region. So essentially what the CEC has done here is they have mapped the whole of Aravallis. They have recommended that in sensitive areas, in aquifer zones, particularly in tiger, reserve areas, the mining should be banned completely. Okay, so strict mining ban should be implemented in these regions. That's what the Central Empowered Committee has told. Apart from that, it urged tighter regulation of stone crushing units and advised that no new mining leases or renewables be allowed until proper mapping and impact assessment were completed. These recommendations were accepted by the Supreme Court. Subsequently, in June 2025, Center launched the Aravalli Green Wall project. So this is also interesting and important, by the way, from the perspective of prelims. Center launching Aravalli Green Wall project. So which aims to expand green cover in a 5-kilometer buffer around the Aravallis across 29 districts of Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana and Delhi, contributing to the restoration of 26 million hectares of degraded forest land by 2030. So this Aravalli Green Wall project is essentially it is based on, say, based on the project in Africa. So that is also very, very interesting and important, by the way. Now the Supreme Court has accepted the uniform definition. What it has argued in this particular acceptance of uniform definition is of Aravallis particularly, the court found that states were using inconsistent criteria to identify Aravalli formations. There has also been differing definitions, including by expert groups such as Forest Survey of India, on what makes up Aravalli hills and ranges. So there is no uniform definition. Until and unless you have uniform definition, in policy terms, protecting that particular area becomes very, very easy. Okay, but if it is undefined, anyone can misutilize such vagueness. Particularly, FSI has said that what are Aravalli and hills? You can see some of the definitions included by the FSI in 2010, like slope greater than 3%, foothill buffer of 100 meter, inter-hill distance or valley width of 500 meter, and the area enclosed by above defined hills from all sides would make up the Aravalli hills. So essentially, this is something very, very mathematical definition that is given. To resolve this, it constituted a committee comprising representatives of the Environment Ministry, FSI, State Department, and Geological Survey of India and the CEC, that is Central Empowered Committee of the Supreme Court. This committee has tasked with creating the scientifically grounded nationwide definition of the Aravallis, and they have come up with the definition. The committee submitted its findings in October 25. The SC committee finally ruled that only hills above. So what the definition now is, okay, only the hills above 100 meters would make the cut. Okay, these are the Aravallis, only hills above the 100 meter. Okay, but the amicus curiae objected that potentially it will open all the hills below 100 meters for mining, compromising the whole continuity and integrity of the Aravallis. However, the government concurred The committee recommendations of 100-meter was far more inclusive. The court directed the preparation of detailed management plan for sustainable mining. So to control this particular aspect of, say, illegal mining, what the Supreme Court observed is there should be establishment of management plan for sustainable mining covering the entire Aravalli range. The plan must demarcate areas where mining must be absolutely prohibited, identify zones where limited and highly regulated mining may be permitted, and map sensitive habitats and wildlife corridors, etc. should be, protected. Evaluate cumulative ecological impacts, determine ecological carrying capacity, and articulate restoration and rehabilitate measures. So essentially, no ban mining in Aravallis. Obviously, there are certain aspects of this particular plan that are in question now. So this is a very important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Particularly, this look at the second statement. Aravallis are limited only to the 2 states of India. You have seen the Aravalli range. How many states and union territories does Aravallis occupy is something interesting. Okay, and a very interesting question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. So the next important article is about India-Oman ties getting a boost. We have signed the FTA with Oman now because, essentially our Prime Minister is visiting Oman. So after Jordan, so particularly, see, Oman is very, very important. It is the 3rd largest export destination for India among the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. For you, most important is GCC, and what exactly is this grouping and how many members are there is important. Also important is the Ethiopia. See, there is Oman and then there is Ethiopia. Both these countries, Prime Minister is visiting, and before that, Prime Minister has visited Jordan. All 3 countries, you must prepare the mapping properly. Okay, from the perspective of mapping, prepare prepare these countries. Essentially, you may get direct question on mapping from it. Okay. So, in a bid to strengthen the economic ties, India and Oman are set to sign the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement on Thursday. So, very important. Particularly, Oman and India have strategic ties. Oman is the 3rd largest export destination for India among GCC, with bilateral trade reaching $10.61 billion, almost $11 billion. Relationship important for Delhi as the Gulf nation give access to key trade routes in a volatile region. India is also Oman's 4th largest source of non-oil imports. So, you can see we are actually negotiating this free trade agreement with Oman, and particularly our Commerce Minister is also there, and he is also visiting. And see, the effort in this regard started in particularly 2003. Okay, so essentially, Oman is signing an FTA after nearly 20 years. Its last such agreement being with the United States in January 2006. So this is also interesting and very important that Oman is giving Indian relations a boost, because it is the first bilateral FTA in almost 20 years for Oman. Okay, sector opportunities and priority areas, you can go through this bilateral trade profile. You can, as I said, almost $11 billion worth of trade. Key trade items, you can go through this particular article as well. See, important investment and joint venture has been announced. Over 6,000 India-Oman joint ventures, particularly operating in Oman, contributing about $7.5 billion to Omani's economy. So this includes formal outward direct investment of $675 million as well. So Oman is India's key. See, for Oman, Indian FDI is also very significant. Okay, so that is true. From the perspective of mapping, you must know Oman as well as Ethiopia. You can clearly see this particular map of Oman, and this is the Ethiopia's map. Border countries is something you must look at, like Oman is bordered by Yemen, Saudi Arabia, UAE. Okay, and then there is Gulf of Oman, Arabian Sea, and all those things. State of Hormuz is there, although it doesn't border State of Hormuz. Okay, remember that. On the other side, Ethiopia, you can see Ethiopia, although this is the same map, by the way. Ethiopia is here. Okay, you can clearly see the map of Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, and Kenya. These are the border countries for Ethiopia. Remember that. Essentially, Ethiopia is a landlocked country. Remember that. It doesn't border sea, any sort of ocean or sea. This is a practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. See, the next important article that we are going to take a look at is possible discovery of dark matter sparking debate and expert urging caution in this regard. So what has happened is there is this claim of the physicist that have said that they have found the dark matter. So essentially, it is a false alarm or a discovery that solves one of the greatest mysteries in cosmology. This is indeed the greatest mystery, as I earlier said. See, who first coined the term dark matter is astronomer Zwicky, astronomer Fritz Zwicky. First observed that galaxies in the cluster coma cluster were moving too quickly for the amount of ordinary matter it contained. So essentially, in the end, the rapid speed with which it is expanding or going away, it actually created a suspicion in the mind of Swiss astronomer Fritz Zwicky, and he said that the movement per se, the speed with which that cluster is moving, is not theoretically possible because it has the ordinary matter it contained may not sustain the gravitational pull that is overcoming the overall speed. He realized the speed of their rotation was so great that they should have flown apart, as they didn't have enough matter to generate the gravity needed to hold them together. That's the case, they are actually getting accelerated while moving, but with that acceleration and with that speed, the ordinary matter may be, flung around in the whole universe, but that didn't happen. So something is holding the whole galaxy together while speeding up at the same time, and that's what he called it. That matter, he called it a dark matter. So he was the first one to coin this particular term. Remember, astronomer Fritz Zwicky term the word dark matter. WIMPs is also another important term here. See, most of the time you do not have to go too deep into this. By the way, just remember WIMPs. That is, what do I mean by WIMPs? Is weakly interacting massive particles. Weakly interacting massive particles. These are essentially theoretized to be to be the composition of dark matter. Okay, although we haven't actually found exactly the WIMPs yet in the universe. Okay, so this is just a theoretical, development. According to the standard model of particle physics, ordinary baryonic matter that makes up the world around us consists of elementary particles such as baryons. Baryons is essentially protons and neutrons, and electrons along with massless photons of electromagnetic radiation such as light. Baryons themselves are made up of even smaller particles called quarks and gluons, but all these fundamental particles are just 5% of all the mass known in the universe. You can clearly see 5% visible matter, 68% dark energy, and 27% dark matter. And this dark matter is theorized to be formed by WIMPs, that is weakly interacting massive particles. Okay, so remember, WIMPs, the word WIMPs is associated with dark matter research. According to physicists, WIMPs barely interact with normal matter and not at all with any form of electromagnetic radiation. That's why they are difficult to observe. They do not interact with any sort of matter, so it is very difficult to interact with them. So essentially, remember, the term WIMPs is associated with the dark matter. Okay, that much is enough for you. I don't think you need to go too deep into it. Neither we have time to go into it. Okay, claim of a possible dark matter signal. So some research is done in this regard. Although there are these are just the claims. Okay, as I earlier said, essentially the signal consists of gamma rays with extremely high energy, around 20 giga electron volts, forming a halo-like structure towards the center of the Milky Way, closely matching the expected shape of the dark matter halo. So they are actually, saying that the halo created around the Milky Way may be because of the dark matter impact. Linked to WIMP dark matter models. So, one professor stated that observed gamma ray energy spectrum aligns well with the theoretical predictions for the annihilation of the hypothetical weakly interacting massive particles with masses about 500 times that of a proton. That has raised excitement among WIMPs are among the leading dark matter candidates. So, WIMPs were predicted earlier. These are essentially a new particle of matter, new particles in standard model of physics. They are neither baryons nor fermions, by the way, just new particles which are there, which are the essentially the candidate, which are theorized to be theoretized to be the particles of interest for dark matter. So essentially, although it is highly it may create further issues because obviously the limitations surrounding our modeling and issues surrounding that. Okay, so just go through this: statistical significance and alternative sources, broader context, dark matter evidence, independent evidence for dark matter. So this is the most important part. The independent evidence for dark matter already exists through gravitational effects such as lensing. Through gravitational lensing, we can observe the indirect, you can observe indirectly the dark matter. So we can theorize that gravitational lensing is means dark matter and dark energy is exerting some sort of influence on, say, gravitational waves as well. A well-known example is the bullet cluster, where dark matter was inferred from how it bends light differently from normal matter during the cluster collision. So how in gravitational lensing, essentially, bending of light due to the gravitation. So there are certain, the example here given is a bullet cluster, and how bullet cluster is bending the light. Otherwise, it is not possible with normal matter. So there are indirect evidences of, say, dark matter and dark energy. But essentially, another important model, that is lambda model, cold dark matter model of universe. It also supports WIMPs, particularly the weakly interacting weakly interacting particles, particularly weakly interacting massive particles. Okay, so lambda. So see the term, that is lambda cold dark matter model, is also associated with the formation of the universe. Remember that. So this is the practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. I know I didn't cover it thoroughly. Okay, because from the perspective of prelims, you do not have to go too much deep into it. Okay, remember the WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles associated with dark matter. This much is enough. Lambda model of universe, there is lambda cold dark matter model, that is just a theoretical model of the universe. That also is means WIMPs are supported by that model particularly. And just remember these important terms and just comment your answer in the comment section. This is very important. Wirelessly linking 7 trains, China's test run sets the template. So essentially, China, what has done is a major technological breakthrough in the running of seven loaded freight trains as a set without attaching them physically. So one by one, one after the other, the Chinese, what they did is they actually synchronized these 7 freight trains without any physical attachments between them, through wireless communication. Behind this test run was a wireless system. So this is the system, the wireless system that helped all 7 trains, each carrying almost 5,000 tons of freight, to run much closer to each other than they would have had they been traveling individually. So this new rail system can bolster China's already dominant railway freight industry, enabling it to move much larger quantities in a shorter amount of time. Remember that. You can clearly go through, you can see this means some explanation here. I don't think that is much of value. What does this mean for China? This is important. Okay, so due to this particular development, due to this particular major breakthrough, China will be able to increase its freight loading significantly as high as 50% without building additional infrastructure. China is a heavyweight in total freight loading and passenger movement in railways. According to China Daily, the country's railway system transported over 2.33 billion tons of cargo during the January to July period of 2025. This volume was almost 3% increase over the last year. What is the India's load in this regard? Indian Railways during the financial year 22 or 25 was 1.6 billion tons. So you can clearly see the comparison here. So in just 5 to 6 months, China actually transported 2.33 billions, but in whole year 1.6 billion vis-a-vis India. While the Chinese railway system is already dominant in the region, it has taken up many take projects to increase the loading without expanding its infrastructure. Particularly since its launch in 2022, the project has completed technical verification for multiple operating scenarios, including the single locomotive runs, 5,000 ton loaded and empty trains, and 10,000 ton empty trains. So to certain extent, this particular technology will help China to actually, transport freight more efficiently going forward. So very important and interesting technology, the wireless communication system that they have developed. That's the only point that you have to remember. So in last two articles, remember WIMPs associated with dark matter research, and this particular, the freight trains can run one after the another without any accidents or anything like that, just based on wireless communication system. And that is means good, that is huge development vis-a-vis freight corridor transportation and logistics in that particular regard. So that's it from my side, and stay tuned for the another edition of Daily News Analysis. Thank you.